One of the things that I think, if you could, is there anything that you could tell young people that what they need to do and know how to do in terms of budgeting? What have you done in budgeting, and how do you go and allocate funds from income into expense? Now, welcome to our podcast episode where we're going to be talking about students going through the process of getting into college, and how are you even going to be able to afford that college tuition. Now, we have today Miranda Paulos. We're going to be doing a one-on-one podcast with you. Just as an introduction, this is Arnold Paulos, and who's with me today?
I'm Miranda, his daughter.
Miranda Paulos, who is my oldest daughter, and you are listening to our Beyond Wisdom podcast. Like I said, today we are going to go over one of the major questions that I always get from relatives, from neighbors, from my patients in the dental office, because of they're getting students entering college, and Miranda here, and then she could go ahead and go and let us know where she's at in her journey from high school to college to postgraduate. And this is going to apply to a lot of people who's going to college. Now, a little bit of background, Arnold Paulos, we live in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, East Bay Area of San Francisco, Alameda County, in the city of Pleasanton, my office, dentist office in Dublin. And Miranda is our oldest daughter, who actually grew up here in the Tri-Valley. And so now she has gone through, and you could go ahead and start with that, telling us, where have you been? High school in Foothill High School here in Pleasanton. And then where did you go to college, Miranda Paulos?
Yeah, so I went to college in Southern California at UC Irvine, and I got my double degree in public health policy and music performance. And then after college, my first job as a postgraduate was at University of California, San Francisco in higher education. And then after being there for 2 years, then I moved to St. Louis, and then I got another role in higher education in student affairs at a university over here. And then I've been at this role for about a year and a half. And then a couple months ago, I felt like I had this feeling that I wanted to do more, but I didn't know what that more looked like. And then I had a conversation with a colleague, and she was talking about how she got her master's, and she was talking about how she was able to do it while she was working. So then I started to get curious, and then I just started looking up master's programs. And then I was just talking to other people in my circle. And then I ultimately found a fully online Master of Business Administration program. And then I kind of just made the decision really quick whether or not I wanted to do it. And I said I wanted to do it and applied, and I got in. And today's actually my first day. So I actually started some of my classes today, but that's where I'm at. I'm still working my full-time job while I'm also pursuing this master's degree on the side, or along with my job.
A lot of the challenges that parents are going to have, a lot of the challenges that the entering student is going to have, would be first getting into a program, getting into an undergraduate program, and then, if for some people, getting into a postgraduate program. And they're going to come into the challenges of which program do I want to go into, and how am I going to afford going to school in this program. So even if you were going into undergraduate meaning the regular BA, BS degree, and then a postgraduate would be like a dental program or master's in business administration program. The challenges are the same. The challenges that the parents have is, how are they going to be able to afford this? Now, I remember, and I'm not sure if you remember, Miranda, but when you apply to undergraduate, it's almost the same process of how am I going to afford this? And if you think about it, most of the tuition was paid mainly, and most people do this, will be either getting grants, scholarships, or you've just saved up enough money to go ahead and pay for it. There are those college funds that are people get into, the 529 funds that you could actually put away before you start getting into college. Also, there are ways to get into college with grants and scholarship that I mentioned. But as you go through this, you want to make sure that you have enough funds to go through college and be able to afford it. There is a big crisis right now with student loans, and that's what you're hearing right now all over the United States, with students having to repay these loans pretty soon. And now we're at what? August, September, and October for most students who had taken loans. They're going to have to start repaying that. So in undergrad, you're the same thing, undergraduate or postgraduate, you are still going to try to find out how you're going to afford this. And most of us, we're going to either fund the college, or you're going to try to get scholarship, grants, or loans. Now, with postgraduate situation that Miranda's in, what is it that you've got in terms of the program? Undergrad is 4 years, and the program that you're getting into is how long, Miranda?
I believe it is 16 months. So I started today in August, and then I should be done by December of next year. So a little over a year.
Yeah. So if you notice postgraduate work, it depends on the program. If you're going to go to dental school, one school, UOP, University of Pacific, has a 3-year program to become a dentist, postgraduate. UCSF, where I went, 4 years, and most dental schools are 4 years. For an MBA, I've heard that they could be from 4 semesters, 1 year, 16 months, 2 years, depending on the school. So depending on the program you're trying to get into. So you're going to have to figure out how long is that program is going to be and how much the tuition is going to be. Most 4-year universities, undergraduate, are 4 years, and you could go ahead and try to budget that. But for the purposes of this podcast, we're talking about postgraduate, where in Miranda's case, how long is the program going to be, Miranda?
16 months, 4 semesters.
16 months. So now, what did you find out about this particular program, the tuitions? Because tuitions vary depending on the program. The program, from when I talk to patients of ours, and then I talk to other people who's going into certain programs, that could range from 1 year. 1 year would cost $100,000 to maybe, for some universities, will only cost between $30,000 to $40,000. Depending on the program, will determine how much that tuition is going to be. So a 16-month program, how much is that going to be, Miranda?
For my particular program, it's totaling to be $36,000 for my program.
36,000. Yeah, for some students just getting out of undergraduate, how are they going to be able to afford that if they're not working, or if you are getting out of the 4-year undergraduate school and you're applying to a nursing, you're applying to become a physician, you're applying to become a dentist? How long is that going to be, and how much is that going to be? This is a 16-month program. And most dental schools are pretty much, tuition-wise, is about that much. If you're going to like a UC, their per year is going to cost between $50,000 to $100,000 per year tuition, and that's not even including living expense. So if you're looking at tuition, you're looking at a tuition that is between $30,000 to $40,000, and then you have to go ahead and say how much is it going to be to go and live wherever it is that program's going to be. And then you go ahead and add that into the total cost of going into a program. So that's one of the things that you got to try to find out. How long is that program going to be? How much is it going to cost? And then the next step would be, how are you going to come up with that tuition fee or the living expense? So there's going to be a couple of ways that you do this. One of the things that you have to do, and I remember when you guys were going to college, there are applications that you have to fill out. Now, what application do you have to fill out to try to get some grants, loans, or scholarship? The first program that's out there, the first application is, what is that called?
The FAFSA.
Yeah, FAFSA standing for?
Free application for federal student aid. FAFSA.
Yes. So if you were in high school and you're gonna think about going to college, when you have an assembly or when you talk to your counselor, they're gonna talk about this application. The application is so that you can go ahead and it's an application so you could see if you could apply for federal student loans. Basically, that's what it is, I think. So you're gonna apply for something like this, or you are going to try to get some scholarship, or you're going to go ahead and dip into your savings and be able to pay for this as you go through the semesters, the year, so that you can pay tuition. So now, what did you find out when you are applying to this postgraduate work, Miranda? What type of program is available for postgraduate work, getting their MBA, and what kind of programs are there to get help in tuition?
Well, typically there's multiple loans you can apply for, but a general one that usually the university has, and at least my university has an option for, is a federal loan. And the option that my university has is a federal direct loan, which is like a unsubsidized loan, which means that your interest starts accruing right when you apply for it. And with federal loans, I think it's also a set interest rate, which means you have an interest rate that's already set by the program and the government, and then that's your set interest rate. And then, so from federal loans, there's also, if you don't want to go the federal route, then there's also private loans that are typically from a bank or other type of lenders. But generally, there's a federal loan from the government and from your school, and then there's private loans which are owned by banks.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about getting loans for postgraduate work, and this is where the challenges are now, that they have to start being repaid. This is where the crisis is happening with the federal student loan, that now they have to be paid starting in October 2023. It has been pushed back. Students didn't have to pay for these loans until now. They are going to be due to start paying. Certain loans have certain programs with them. Now, Miranda's talked about unsubsidized versus subsidized loans. There's also interest rates on these loans. One of the things that you got to try to find out is that when you take out the loan, does the interest start accumulating as you take out monies to pay for your tuition? There's also programs where they defer the loan so that you don't have to go ahead and pay it until a certain time, which is when you graduate. And so you have to figure out and then read the fine print to figure out what program, what are you signing up for, because it will determine how much you'll be paying. So now a lot of the people that are going to have to pay these loans back are in a situation where, do they have enough funds to start paying the loans, and have those loans been accumulating interest during these times? Most of those loans, if it's a federal loan, I think they weren't adding on the interest on them, but they're going to start adding interest. But there are certain loans now, if you take them now, some of these loans are going to start accumulating interest as you take them out. Or are they going to be certain loans where the interest doesn't have to be tacked on until when you graduate, and at the same time, you don't have to pay them until when you graduate? Some loans have to be paid as you take them out. So you have to find out what's in the fine details of these loans, because we're talking about federal backed loans. We're also talking about loans from the university. There's also scholarships from the university, from the alumni, and there are private loans that you have to find out what are the terms of these loans, how much the interest rates are, because they're going to be important on how much total that you're going to be paying. Because after you get out, it's not just the $100,000 that you took out, but it's going to be accumulating interest, and you're going to have to calculate that, and then you see how much total your educational cost would be. Now, anything else that you found out about these loans, Miranda?
That was the main thing. The difference between, federal loans, unsubsidized versus subsidized, and like even what an interest rate was or how that accumulates over time. Because that was one thing that I didn't fully understand was interest rates when it comes to loans. Because I understood when it comes to, credit cards, the stock market, it's all the same, but it benefits you differently. Because when it comes to interest rates on credit cards, I just know that, you pay your credit card so that you don't have to pay extra. And when it comes to interest rates with like the stock market, that could actually benefit you because if you put money into the stock market, then the interest rate makes your money give you more money. But when it comes to loans, it's basically, the institution's not just going to give you that money for free. It's the interest rate is almost like a fee for them letting you borrow the money. So that's what I understood when it comes to interest rates, because that was something that I didn't understand before.
Yeah,
and I don't think a lot of people understand that sometimes.
That is the challenge that most people have, is they don't understand the financial part of going to school. That's why if you're a parent and you're planning on savings for your kids going to college, there are, like I said, putting aside monies that grow tax free as it grows, and then you could talk to some programs out there, college funds, so that at least this way you're putting out monies now when the kids are younger, and then being able to go ahead and pull that money out later on so that you go ahead and pay for the tuition. Now, once you start going into school and then you know that you have to pay for these programs, the question that you want to ask is, how much is this education going to cost me? Because even though you are pulling out $30,000, $40,000 to pay for your tuition, to pay for your first year, or if you're pulling out $100,000, it's not $100,000 you're going to be paying in the life of that loan. There is interest on the loan that you've taken out. So it's always good to know, and there's always little things out there that you have to find out. What's the maximum loan that you could get? What's the minimum loan that you could get? What are the interests on these? Are they fixed rates or are they variable rates? Because if you go to the bank, commercial bank, some of these loans are actually variable where they could change. But some of them, like, what did you find out about that? The fixed rates or variable rates, Miranda?
For the federal loan from the university, that one's a fixed rate. So it's about 7% for this academic year. So that means it would stay at that interest rate for the life of the loan. But when I was looking at other loans, they have it looks like they have options for fixed and variable. At least when I was looking at them.
Yeah, so those are terms as a young person trying to figure out financing your education, being able to go ahead and be responsible financially on what you're doing. You want to know these terms, and you want to know how this is going to affect you long term. Because when you get out of school, there are things that you're going to have to, or you would like to purchase, like buying a house. How much is that house going to be versus your existing loan, your educational loans? And then how much burden are you going to be with debt coming out of school and being able to pay for this? So yes, it's easy to get these loans, but you're going to have to pay for these loans. You're going to have to pay them back. And so when you get out of school, you have to have some means of income to be able to pay these loans back. So as a dentist, as a dental student, you've got to know that when you get out as a student and then get a job as a dentist, as a physician, as a nurse, as a engineer, you've got to be able to go ahead and say, how much is the income that I'm going to get, and how much can I afford to live? How much could how much of a house can I afford? And then knowing that you've got student loans that requires you to pay on a monthly basis, what is your budget going to be? Because of, yes, now you went ahead and got your postgraduate education, but that loan's got to be paid. So now, like I said, the best thing to do is know the situation that you're in, how much the education is going to cost, and then be able to go ahead and budget yourself and say, if this is the tuition, where am I going to go ahead and be able to pay for this tuition? Is it going to be from loans? Is it going to be from scholarship, grants, or is it going to be from gifts from families or your own savings? And so that when you do get out, you've already thought about how are these loans, how are these tuition going to be paid for after I get out? Because loans have to be paid back. Student loans have to be paid back. And like I said, right now, student loans are going to start getting paid at the end of this year, the fourth quarter of 2023 for a lot of people. And the question is, do you have enough funds? Do you have enough income to start paying those loans and being able to pay your living expense? Because when you get out of school, there are other expenses. Like, what other expenses have you noticed that you have to come up with now, Miranda, as a working person getting out of undergraduate? What did you have to purchase to start doing work and living expense and things like that? What is it that you have to budget for?
I have to pay for my car payment. I have to pay for gas, insurance for my car, groceries, and other necessities. But those are my main ones.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think, if you could, is there anything that you could tell young people that what they need to do and know how to do in terms of budgeting? What have you done in budgeting, and how do you go and allocate funds from income into expense?
So I think the main thing is looking at the main thing is looking at like how much of your expenses are needs. So all of the things that you need to survive. So rent, anything with transportation, groceries, living expenses, all of those. So that would be kind of everything that you need to survive. And then I think it's also good to also have a portion of your budget that goes to your wants. So anything like if you want to buy anything for yourself, if you want to go out, anything that's not necessary for living and surviving. And then I think it's also good to have a portion of your budget that goes towards your future, whether that's just saving or retirement or paying off debt. I think those are three main things or three main buckets of your budget that are a good place to start. And you always hear about the 50-30-20 rule, where people say, 50% of your income should go to need. So anything that you need to survive, 30% should go towards your wants, anything that's not necessarily needed for, survival, but something that you want to just buy for yourself. And then 20% should go to future you. But I think those are three good places to start when it comes to budgeting.
Yeah, you're going to find your way of doing budgeting or what's important to you, but very basic. There's income coming in, funds that comes in, and there's overhead or things that you buy coming out. So what you want to do, and I think what Miranda's talking about, is that you've got income coming in. You've also got a budget for things that are necessities that you need to expend on. And there's also going to be a percentage of savings that you want to do. Saving, what I mean by saving is saving for a rainy day, saving for emergency, because you want to be able to go ahead and come up with funds just in case the income's not there. Once you've gotten that satisfied, you want to have some funds that you put away for investments. So the way that that works, and the way that I've tried to teach Miranda, Rhea, and Andrew, I don't think Andrew would be able to figure this out because of his special needs. He wouldn't know what we're talking about in terms of financial. But in terms of our kids, we're trying to go ahead and say, you've got income coming in, and then there are going to be expenses that are needed to be paid. You also want to have one quadrant for savings for emergency, and then you also want to have a percentage that goes to investments. So if you go ahead and quadrant yourself in terms of where do I put my money, and then be able to go ahead and be able to save money for emergency, and then use some for investments. I think that goes a long ways in knowing how to budget. Because what was the percentage that you were talking about? What percentage was it that you're using in terms of if you had income coming in, let's say $100, how much, what are the percentages that you were talking about, Miranda?
50, 30, 20. That's the
Okay.
general rule. But you can
50,
always
30,
change it however
Okay,
you need
50,
to.
30, 20 is three pieces of a pie. If there's a fourth one, 50 goes to where? 50%?
50 goes to your needs, so anything that you need to survive.
Just like rent, mortgage, or food is basically what you're talking about. So basically, you're talking about what is needed is you need shelter. You also need food, right? And then anything else besides those things, that's necessities.
Transportation, whatever that might look like for you.
So those are what we're talking about, the things that you have to pay for. And then so that's 50. What is the 30?
Your wants. So anything that is not necessarily needed to survive. But I think that you should also enjoy the money that you have too. So I think the 50, 30, and then 30 towards your wants.
Okay, then what's the 20?
Your future you, or investments and savings.
So from what you're telling me is that you're going to put 30. Okay, so 50% on, and so you're going to budget 50% of whatever you make towards whatever it is that is needed to live and survive in what you do. 30% is the things that you to basically pay yourself. You know, like, this is what I want. I want to go on vacation, and then that goes towards that. I want to buy something that's different from what I really need. And then what you're saying is that you're going to break down the 10% on the saving and 10% on the investment. Is that what you said?
No, 20% on just any kind of savings, which could be 10% on investment, 10% on other savings.
Basically, what Miranda's done is she goes 50% is going to go on things that I need. 30% is going to go to things that I would at least enjoy, the stuff that I'm working for. And then 20% on the things that I'm going to save or invest. So, and now the other thing that Miranda mentioned is that later on you could go and change the percentages. But she's basically talking about what I just said, 4 quadrants. Things come in, and there's going to be the things that you need, in her case, 50%, and then 30% on the things that she would like to get, which is paying herself. And the other 20% is if she's got enough savings, and the savings are usually, how much would you like to save for a rainy day? How many months would you like to save for, just in case there's an emergency?
Generally, I hear people you can save between 3 to 6 months of emergency savings.
Yes. So once you have that, and whatever that number is, doesn't really matter. It's each individual number. Once you have that, then you could put that aside, and then all that 20% goes on to your savings once you've gotten your your savings, all the other 20% goes to your investment. So what you always want to do is income comes in, there's expenses, and then there's the 30% that you want to do for whatever it is that you want to do it for. And then make sure that you're always putting something for savings or investment. But that percentage is like what Miranda's doing now as she goes through this cycle in her early 20s, trying to figure out where does the money go, so that you will know. Sometimes people have a hard time, like, yeah, I'm making all this money, but like, I don't know where it's at. So what you want to do is when you start in the beginning, know that there's income coming in and expenses coming out. You always want to have savings. You also want to have some money for investments. And then when something like this happened, where Miranda in her situation has taken 4 years, gap years, to decide, I think I want to go to do a postgraduate work and get an MBA. Now she's going like, okay, like, where am I going to get this money to go and pay for my tuition? So what I've asked her to do is go ahead and start figuring out, how could you afford this 16 months of education, postgraduate, to get an MBA, and how would you be able to pay for it? And what we're doing right now is trying to figure out, you could surely, as an advice for anybody who's listening to this, you could surely get a loan. There are university loans, federal loans, and commercial loans that you could get. Know the details, and then you could surely go ahead and have some of the savings that you've had, and then be able to pay tuition that way. And or you could have grants or scholarship. Scholarship could be from your parents or from the university. So these are the ways that people are able to pay for tuition, either undergraduate, 4 years of undergraduate, or postgraduate, either going to be 4 semester, 1 year, 3 years of dental school at University of Pacific Dental School, or 4 years of dental school at University of California, San Francisco, where I went. So now we are here today, August 2023, when everybody's starting to go to school. Everybody's already got accepted. And then now the question is, how am I going to be able to go ahead after I've taken these loans out, after I've already gotten the scholarship, use my money, and then now if I have to pay the loans, just like a lot of the people who's going to go ahead and pay these loans that are due starting the fourth quarter of 2023, how are you going to be able to pay for that? So the wisdom that we're trying to do today is make sure that you're budgeting, make sure that you know your expense, and then be able to go ahead and save, or know where you can get the funds to pay for the tuition, and then know where you're going to get the funds to be able to pay that loans back. So anything else that you'd like to say, Miranda, moving forward, trying to get your MBA starting 2023, and then by when are you going to be done with your program?
December 2024.
Yeah, that's how fast this works. Time goes by really quick, but you got to make sure that you're planning. So the tip of the day is make sure you plan, make sure you budget, and then make sure that you could go ahead and move on in the life journey that you have chosen to go through. So once again, next time, any questions, you could always go ahead and make sure you leave that comment below, and then we'll see you on our next episode here at Beyond Wisdom Podcast. Thank you, Miranda.